Welcome back to the 150K podcast. I'm your host, Joe Graham, where we help take your dreams to six figures and beyond. They have with me special guest, Hunter Ballew of Revolt. Now, I met you actually, my buddy Phillip Sessions, who's been on this show, introduced us, said, hey, I have to get you on the show. So, Hunter, this is kind of like I always make the joke of first date. We don't know each other that well. We just have a mutual friend. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, man, small town guy out of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I don't know if you have you heard of Travelers Rest, Joe? No,
Yeah.
yeah, most of your listeners probably haven't either. Man, when I was growing up here in TR, we call it TR. It was a very small town. Nobody knew it. When I graduated high school in 2009, went off to the Marine Corps. I came back and they started kind of fixing it up. We have this railroad that used to run through our town, and when the railroad company went away, you just had these tracks. And so it connected from Travelers Rest to Greenville, South Carolina, which I'm sure some people have heard of Greenville, South Carolina. So it's like 13 miles. And they made this trail called the Swamp Rabbit Trail. And so it's pretty popular now. It's paved over, and everyone started voting for TR as like best small town in America. And now it's kind of blown up. But yeah, man, I was born, raised, and stayed here. It's rare that I go out to eat now and it's people from here. It's just so many people have moved here. But yeah, stayed here, went off, did my thing in the Marine Corps, spent 5 years at the fire department full time as a firefighter EMT, and just always kind of had this desire inside to chase business and be an entrepreneur. And so in 2015, I left the fire department full time the end of that year, December 22nd, started a business. From there, we started to grow, hit eight figures, multiple eight figures, sold a company for multiple eight figures. Have several businesses now, one of those being a conference that we run with over 5,000 people a year, a couple hundred vendors, one of those being Revolt, our mastermind for business owners. So just a wide range. We've got an app with 100,000 users in it. So pretty fun stuff, man. It's just been a wild ride. And meanwhile, I'm still with the chick that I met at the local gas station back in
Nice.
2011. My wife, Maggie, we've been together since 2011. She was 19 and I was 20 years old. And we have a little boy, Turner, that is 5 years old, that's biological. And then we have a daughter, Fields, that's about 18 months old, and she's adopted. And so love both of them so much. They make life fun. And so, yeah, that's a little background on me.
No, I love it. First, I'm going to go with the family because I'm a family man. I've been married 23 years to my high school youth group sweetheart. So totally get that vibe. Love that. But you kind of just raised over something real quick. You're like, I made a business, went to eight figures, sold it for eight figures. Then you went on to the next thing. So how did you go from being a firefighter, which is a great, like my father was a volunteer firefighter, my father-in-law was a volunteer firefighter, to having an eight-figure business? That wasn't just, I'm assuming, an overnight thing. How did you get that even going, or what did you even do?
Yeah. So when I was at the fire department, man, it was just nonstop trying to figure out a side hustle to make extra money. You don't make much money as a firefighter. When I started, I was making like $24,000 a year. Every other week, my paycheck was $709, So it's
Mhm.
like, it doesn't take much math and to figure out if you have these dreams of being a millionaire that you're not going to get there doing that. So I started a moving company called Upstate Honda Delivery. That moved into me learning some stuff about Amazon and then learning about marketing and more of the digital play. And so when I left the fire department December 22nd, 2015, that first year, 2016, I spent all of my time, all of my resources, all of my money learning how to market and to grow a company, and learned all about branding and building websites and all the things. And so into 2016, I'd been running ads and helping roofers grow. Now, it wasn't specific to roofers at first, it was business owners. And then I landed a roofer, another roofer, and I was like, you know what? This is a solid industry. Like their ticket's high enough so that if I get them a couple roofs, they'll keep paying me. Versus I had like a personal trainer, I had a coffee shop, and it's like, how many cups of coffee do they have to sell to pay
Yep.
me $1,500 a month? So I liked roofing, and after I helped one client specifically go from 3 million to 7 million in a very short time frame, I was like, man, I should like start my own kind of as a case study, because if I can grow it to seven figures, then I'll get more marketing clients. And so I started working on the website of Cornerstone Construction, my roofing company, end of 2016, launched it in May of 2017, knew nothing about roofing at all, like nothing. People think I joke when I say that, and I mean it. And like I still jokingly, but seriously tell people now, I still don't know that much about roofing. Like I
Yep.
just hired the right people and build the team. But yeah, in May of 2017, we launched it. 2017, 2018, I kind of took it not real serious, man. Like I was still doing the marketing, still doing consulting. And so I didn't take Cornerstone super serious. We did seven figures in our first year. Next year we did about 2 million. And then end of 2018, so our second year in business, I had come back from a consulting gig I did up north. I spent a month with this other roofer just consulting him, helping him put systems and processes in place. And he grew really fast from those
Mhm.
actions. And I was like, you know what, man, if I can help him do this. In fact, we did in that 1 month, we did $1 million, over $1 million in business. And I was like, geez, like if I would just take my own business serious, we should be
Yep,
able to
yep.
do this. So 2018 into 2018, I started taking it serious. January of 2019 is when I rolled out what is called the six-figure blueprint that I've coached thousands of people on how to create a resource, a framework, basically it's a course for sales reps inside of your own business to come in and be able to make six figures. And so that was a culmination of me having all of our own stuff, our core values in there, mission statement, welcome to the team. This is what we're about. This is our all the things. This is how you work the CRM. Here's product knowledge. Here's warranty stuff. Here's the sales process. And then I would go out and buy other people's sales training, like your sales training. I would say, hey, I want to buy your training and put it in here into our blueprint because I wanted to be able to track the back end. Like I didn't want to send our reps to someone else's platform where I couldn't track it. So we would just get their content, upload it to our system, which was teachable.com that we still use today for a ton of stuff. And then we'd be able to track the back end. And so 2019 is when I really doubled down and said, hey, let's grow this thing. We did 5 that year. 2020, we exploded, hit 8 figures. And then in 2021, had a company approach us early 2021 to buy for $48 million. We did that. About a year in, it was a public company. So it was like a cash and stock deal, millions of dollars in cash, millions of dollars in stock. The stock dropped and I had what was called a make whole provision. So I was owed a lot of cash, millions in stock. So when that year came around for that make whole provision, we got in a big, nasty, ugly lawsuit because they were like, we don't want to pay the rest of this. And I'm like, well, I'm getting the rest of this because I'm owed it. And we ended up settling to where I got to keep all the cash I already had. I got to keep millions in shares and I got my company back because they just didn't want to. They were essentially going to have to create more shares, authorize more shares, which was going to dilute all the shareholders, which would have pissed everybody off, which is understandable to a degree. But so I ended up getting the company back for less than what I'd been paid for it. So that was awesome. And now we're growing that company even more. We just acquired another roofing company locally. So that's one of the things. And then we have RoofCon and we have Revolt and RepCard and
Mhm.
yeah, ownroofing.com as well. So it's been fun, man. But yeah, definitely not overnight. Definitely not without stress and headache and, losing hair.
Yep,
It's been
yep,
a
yep.
wild ride, man. People see the stuff and it's true. They think you just kill it and everything you touch turns to gold, and that's not true. Actually, I was running a retreat. I don't know what that is. I was running a retreat a few months ago, and I was upstairs getting ready for a session, and I heard the people downstairs talking, and one of the people were like, "Oh yeah, everything Hunter touches just turns to gold, and he never fails, and yada yada yada." And I didn't say anything right there. I let everybody come upstairs for the session to start, and before I even started the session, I was like, "I want to address something and let you guys know." That whoever said that, I didn't even know who it was. So I asked who said it, and I was like, I'm not trying to call you out, but I want you to know this, and I want everyone else to know this. That's not true. I have failed so many more times than I've won. Luckily for me, it's a blessing. My wins have been big enough to outweigh my losses. So yeah, I may win, not one time out of 10 and lose 9 times, but that one win is so big that it outweighs the nine. But you got to lose a few times to find that win for most people.
Yeah, no, I love that because you said like a bunch of really cool stuff there. So I'm just gonna re-back it up here. You mentioned you have to have the capacity to lose to win, which is so true. I saw one of the Hermosis, I can't remember if it's Alex or his wife, state that if you want to make 1 million, you're gonna lose 100,000. If you want to make 100,000, you lose 10. And understanding that there's always that risk versus reward. And dude, I preach this all the time. I'm in sales 20 years. I am not an overnight success. There was years where it sucked. There was years where I had to learn, where I had to grow, where I had to adapt. Same thing with you, but like you said, you kept going, you kept adapting, you kept changing the game to the point where, like you said this earlier, and I thought it was interesting. You're like, oh, I'm just going to buy a roofing company because I found this is my ideal client. So when we're walking people down the path of what they're wanting to do, and help me with this. You found that you could do a bunch of clients, but you got into doing roofing clients, and that became like your niche. You were really good at it. They could scale. They had the money they needed to pay for it. Then you got into roofing itself. You're like, well, let me try this out. It made it build up. And I think a lot of times people try to go so broad instead of finding the
Yeah.
right environment for them to grow. How do you help people focus and get not so spaced out? Because I think in this space, everyone tries the new shiny instead of being consistent over time with the one thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, obviously, if you know what you're passionate about, finding those. But I kind of talk about four pieces when I'm coaching someone that's talking about starting a business. Usually I'm coaching people that are already in business and I'm trying to help them grow to 8 figures. Someone that's, sub 5 million, they want to grow to 10 million. I'm coaching those people. But at times I work with people who are trying to start a business, and the four things I usually talk about are: number one, liability. What's the liability of the business? Is it high liability, low liability? Second is profitability. How profitable is it? Look at the margins for that industry. Like you look at roofing and or just contractors in general, man. And it's like 3% net on average across the nation.
Mhm.
3%. So, you're like, oh, got a 7 figure business. Okay, you did $1 million. You made $30,000. Meanwhile, your whole family and everyone else thinks, and this is a real thing, man. Everyone thinks you're killing it because they see the cash flow. Yes, there's $1 million cycling and it looks good and it's easy to get caught up in that and say, hey, I'm going to spend money on a truck and do this and do that and do a trip. And you get lost in the sauce. Meanwhile, at the end of the year, you end up with $30,000. And then that creates self doubt because now you're like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks I'm killing it. And really, I'm not killing it. And it's tough, man. Like you got to know your purpose and you got to know that vision long term. Because, for me, I'll give a real example to your listeners. And this is just me being super vulnerable here. In 2020, we did it was our first 8 figure year. We did like I think 15 million or so in sales. I think like 13 hit the books, because some things don't hit the books on the same year in construction because it just takes a while to build the work. But I think like 13 hit our books. Our net showed 334, $336,000. You do the math on that, it's like 2%. We
Yep.
netted like 2%. Now, that wasn't because Hunter or the team were out buying Lambos or going to Cancun or
Right,
doing
right, right.
stuff. We reinvested the money into the business and markets and trucks and things like that. So it was intentional. We were trying to grow. It wasn't silly stuff. But too many people are out there doing silly stuff because they're like, oh,
Mhm.
I got $1 million freaking business now. Let's go to Cancun and take the team and everybody. And you just can't, man. You got to be responsible. So liability, profitability. Third, scalability. Can you scale it? Is it something you can scale? Because like when you think about, hey, I'm passionate about a I'm passionate about antiques. This is a good example. I love antiques. I love
Mhm.
history. I used to have an antique shop in TR here in the little town. But what you realize is, for one, you're not going to make a ton of money doing that. Two, it's not scalable. I mean, you're not just going to have thousands of antique shops around the US. Sure, someone's going to prove me wrong at some point. There's going to be
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
change.
got you.
You get what I'm saying? The chances are slim that it's scalable. And then lastly, is exitability. Is it something that you can build and sell at some point? And not just can you sell it for enough to be worth it? Like what's the multiple going to be on your EBITDA when you go to sell? Is it an industry where you're getting 2 or 3x, or is it an industry where you're getting 20x or 10x or
Mhm.
15x? Those things matter. So like I really look at those four things when I'm trying to decide if I want to be in a business, and suggest other people do that as well. And you could tie that back into sales too. Like if you're looking at a sales role, is it a product you believe in? Is it
Mhm.
scalable? Is it something you can sell a lot of, or is it something you're going to sell, once a quarter? Is the profitability, the commission, is that going to be enough to feed you and your family and to hit your goals and achieve the things that you want to achieve? You just got to look at all those things.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it right though. A lot of people love the idea of being in business, and like I call them the fake Lambo people. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to go on this trip and do all this thing," but in reality, a business is a lot harder than working for someone. So first, you need to figure out, what do you want to do? Do you want to do entrepreneur light, which is what I call sales, because you have to kill to eat, but you don't have a lot of the overhead, or do you want to build something that, like you said, you can exit from it? Because antique shops, you're not going to exit from that typically, but like with what you're doing, people are going to come and try and buy you out, and then you had to be adaptable because in the great world, you should have just sold the business, got paid, no big deal. But then, conflict crap came in. You're about to lose money, about to have all this stuff happen. And you were adaptable to be like, okay, cool, and negotiate to get the business back and get paid, which is huge. How do you manage stress in life? Because I'm intrigued by this because of all the stuff that you're doing. I see all the grind culture and I'm involved in it. Like I know you have put in the work, I do all the stuff, but there has to be you have to refill yourself as well. How do you balance both? Or maybe not even balance is the right word. How do you handle that aspect of life?
Yeah, I think there's the inner side of the things that we have to do emotionally to balance. And then there's also just the reality of a business and taking stuff off your plate. And I'll talk about that side first. That side is just hiring the right people, building the team. There's no way possible I could do the things that we do, have the events, build the app, do the revenue that we do, partner with other companies. Cause like we have the companies that I've mentioned that we own either like 100% of or the majority of. And then we have companies that we partner with to help them grow. And I couldn't do that without good team members. Like when we go and we do our growth partnership, we get a small percentage of their business to help them grow. Even that, like I'm available for them if they need the help, but I'm not the one on like weekly calls or monthly calls doing the stuff with them because I just don't have the capacity. It's just not possible. And even if
Mhm.
somehow I had the time, obviously I'm just not going to be super sharp if I'm beating myself to death, feeling every minute of the day. So having the right team members is everything, man. I mean, it's everything. Like Cornerstone, this is again me being honest, is like Cornerstone is better now than it was because I put a CEO in place and his
Mhm.
full focus is on Cornerstone. It's not me to where I'm like, I got to do RoofCon, I got to do Revolt, I got to help this partner, I got to. No, he is focused on Cornerstone and how does he grow that? And so that's number one. Secondly, is the inner side, and I would just say, man, it's like constantly searching for that inner peace and knowing that you're good enough and working on your self-worth and believing that you're worthy of having it because so much self-doubt comes with being an entrepreneur. Like this what my response here could get a little long, so cut me off if you need to, but we go back to that lawsuit happens in beginning of 2022. A lot of self-doubt, man. I mean, I sold a company for $48 million. I got a lot of that, in cash and stock and whatever. And I did well and I was happy with that and pleased with that, proud of that. Wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it, but still, like it's not the way I wanted it to go, like I wanted it to continue to grow and continue to grow, and it didn't happen. And so a lot of self-doubt after the lawsuit. And then right when that ended, which was like August of 2022, we roll into our event RoofCon. It was year 4 for us. We went from 39 people the first year to 881 people to 2,100 people to this year, the 4th year in 2022, ended up being like 3,400 people, which was great. It was great growth. It was 50% from the year before, but we expected more. I brought in Tim Tebow, John Maxwell, Nick Sanatastasso, some big speakers, spent a ton of money on speakers. I built out a stage and light show and projectors, and it was like concert quality. And I lost $1 million on that show, on one show that lasts 3 days to just help people. It's not like I'm trying to get rich off of the show. Like I'm trying to help people. And I lost $1 million because it was in Orlando and a hurricane hit during the show. And we were
Wow.
expecting 4 or 5,000 people, and the lack of ticket sales killed us, man. It wrecked us. And we still felt that through last year because some of the vendors were upset and didn't come back the next year, and it hurt us a little bit the next year. I lost $1 million. So back-to-back seasons of this lawsuit, and then lost $1 million. And man, it lasted for about 18 months, and I was just in my head. Like things
Mhm.
going good. I'm still grateful. Thank you, God. Thank you to my wife. Thank you to my team. I'm grateful, but questioning everything I'm doing, questioning myself. Am I good enough? Should I be doing this? Am I the guy to lead this conference? Am I the guy to run this company, this, Cornerstone, do Revolt, all the things? And so, I'll wrap that portion up with this. And where I found my peace was I went to Africa last September. And so this was already on my mind, man, because it was such a stressful time in my life. I just didn't have that peace and I was searching for it. Like anything I do, reading books, like how do I find this inner peace? And I went to Africa. It was so cool seeing those people over there be happy, with so
Mhm.
much less than we have.
Yep.
They're just happy and they're grateful and they're smiling and they're happy to see you. And that was step number one. Second thing, I woke up on like the third night or something while I was there. I don't remember what night it was, but woke up when I was there. I could not sleep. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I get up and I went outside and I started writing. And dude, I can't sing. You don't want to hear me sing. I can't sing. I can't play any music, guitar, piano, anything. But I've always enjoyed writing. So I just started writing, man. It was weird. Like I just woke up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., started writing. And it was a faith-based song. It was called Need You Now. And I just started writing. And so I wrote for a couple hours. Sun starts coming up. The guys start getting up at 6, 7 that I was with. And one of them is like a youth pastor that was with us. And he leads worship and he's really good at music. And so I'm like, hey, Joey, wake up, man. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah.
like, I wrote this song. I don't know anything about chorus or the bridge or any of this stuff. Can you help me out? And so we sat down, we worked through it. We got most of it done that day, worked on it some again the next day, continued to work on it, got it dialed in. And we had this group of Ugandans that was with us. And they joined up with us on the last night and we sang this song together. It was so cool. And when we finished singing the song, we recorded it like I have it recorded, I had my audio guy fix it up. And we gathered around to pray. And dude, I had seen mosquitoes one time while I was over there. Once. And it was the night before at a restaurant we were in. They were hovering around us, not touching us because there was candles and stuff, but hovering around us. The rest of the time I didn't see a mosquito one time. We were circled around praying and I just feel my feet boom, 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 getting attacked with mosquitoes. And so me and I open my eyes during the prayers while one of the Ugandans is praying. I just see everyone like kicking their feet. The people, there was only a couple of us in flip flops, but we're like kicking our feet, and they're just attacking our feet. And so I don't think a lot about it, but I'm like, of course, the last day here. This is 3 a.m. on the last
Yep. Yep.
day, and like 4 hours we're flying back to the U.S. I'm getting bit by mosquitoes. I don't think about it. 2 weeks goes by. I start getting sick, like
Mhm.
real sick. And sure enough, dude, got malaria. We didn't think it was that. I actually went to my family doctor. He's like, no, surely it's not that. I was doing this challenge we have called Fearless 44. I started back in 2019. Thousands of people around the world have done it. This guy reached out, was like, I think you have malaria, brother. Like you look bad. I can see it in your
Mhm.
face. He had a friend that had died from malaria. And so I'm like, no, surely that's not it. He hits me up again. I'm like, no. He finally messages my wife and is like,
Smart
Maggie, you
man.
need
Yep.
to take him to the doctor. And so I just remember, dude, it got so bad. I was laying, we got this big tile shower with shower heads and stuff. And I'm just laying there shivering with hot water on trying to get warm. And she just finally said, I'm taking you to the hospital. I'm calling them to see if they got a room. So we went, sure enough, had it. Um, Took a few days, got rid of it. They said it was zero point 0. 2 weeks goes by, I never feel better. I start getting worse, go back, have it again. And this time it was worse than the first time. And I had E. coli. And dude, in those moments in the hospital is when I found that peace that I was looking for so much.
Mhm.
It was just, I don't know, dude. It's hard to explain. It may sound weird if you're just listening to the audio of this, but when you're laying in bed and you think that there's a chance you might die,
Mhm.
and the doctors are scared, and because they don't see malaria that often over here, and they definitely the way they treated me the second time was way different than the first time. Like there was some serious urgency because I had E. coli too.
Mhm.
And I can say, man, I read a lot about like George Washington and Rockefeller and like them talking about God's protection over their life and providence. And
Yep.
I have this kind of confidence of like God has a plan and calling on my life, and not to make it religious. Just that's my belief. It's like I believe that I
Mhm.
have a calling on my life, and I'm going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives and make an impact. And so I never felt like I'm going to die, but you're thinking about it when they're talking to you like they talk to you.
Mhm.
And man, just sitting there thinking all this stuff that I've been worried about for 18 months, so stressed out, literally losing hair.
Mhm.
None of it matters, man. None of it matters. Like if we lost money on an event, I'll figure it out. Worst case, you would just file bankruptcy. Obviously, we're good. We figured it out. But
Mhm.
worst case, even if that was you, someone listening to this, you can file bankruptcy and start over again. No, it might hurt your ego for a little bit, but it's okay. There's plenty of billionaires that have filed bankruptcy. It's okay.
Mhm.
For the lawsuit. hurt my ego a little bit that I had to go through that. I lost some friends, some people I thought were my friends. I found out who my real friends were through the
Yeah.
process,
Yep.
but I worried about all those things. And when I was laying in that hospital bed, I realized none of that crap mattered, man. It didn't. All that mattered is that I was alive and well for my wife, for my kids, for my nephews, and for my nieces, and for my team members, and for the community, and that I get to live another day and go out and make a difference. And so life since that, man, has been great. Like I
Hmm.
feel rejuvenated. I've been more involved with my companies than I have in 2 years since all that happened, because there was just so much self-doubt, man. Like I felt like I let so many people down that were on that team. And in the last couple months, it's been completely different, 180. And it's crazy how that situation, near death situation, was
Yep.
used to completely transform my mindset and give me new life. So I'm super grateful for that. I know that was long winded, but
No, no, it was good. I loved it because at the beginning I was sitting there going, okay, cool, he's going through the transition. I didn't know you were going there. When you went there, I'm like, oh, but that's like how God works. Or if you believe in the earth, I'm a Christian, I believe in God. So, and I know some people listen to it or have different thoughts, but I think sometimes God gives us perspective to what we really should worry about. Because, like you said, you could go bankrupt if you had to. You could reinvest. You're trying to help people. You're doing everything right. Why are these bad things happening to me? You're in Uganda. I'm assuming you're probably like on a missions trip or just connecting with people. They're doing something good and crazy things happen. But it also gave you the reflection of understanding, okay, cool, what's most important to me? What am I really going to focus on and value? And I bet now it's going to make it to where you're going to go harder, deeper, and farther in the things that are more important to you than what most of us as high achievers, because you're a high achiever, what you do, I'm a high achiever. We get our worth, my friend Brian Bugger says this, from what we achieve, what we perform. But in reality, worth is from relationship, worth is from connection, worth is from helping people and doing the things. And don't get it wrong, I like nice things. I want everyone to make as much money, do what they want to do. But I loved how you kind of tied that back in. So with that, I'm listening to what you say. Faith is huge for you for like self-doubt, self-development, stuff like that. Do you have like a coach, mentor, someone else that you connect with, or is it just more based off of faith and the friends you're with? How do you set that up? Because I know some people are like, yeah, that's great for Hunter, that's great for Joe, but you don't understand how I think, so I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts there were.
so a lot of my life I set up around what I call the 6 bricks. It's something I created a framework a couple of years ago. And it really like started as um, just a way to think about different areas of life that'll move you closer to your legacy, and evolved into a goal setting framework of how you set goals for your life and move towards accomplishing those things so that you do, without a doubt, move closer to your legacy. And those are health, wealth, faith, growth, relationships, and legacy. So with health, it could be like I'm setting a goal to lose 10 pounds, or I'm setting a goal to bench 235, or I'm setting a goal to be at 15% body fat, or whatever it is. And then I'm setting a deadline for that goal. I'm writing down what the reason is for that. Like, what's your why? Why are you actually doing it? What's the consequence for that goal? Like, if you don't accomplish it, what's the consequence? And some people say, oh, there's not a consequence. No, there is. Like, that's the reason you're
Mhm.
setting the goal. There's a consequence for health. I always use this example. My grandpa, he smoked his entire life. He got cancer. He beat it. Well, during the battle with cancer, the doctors told him, hey, you better quit smoking. Well, of course, he quit smoking because the pain was the consequence. I'm going to die. Well, once he beat cancer, he thought he was good. He started smoking again. Guess
Yeah.
what? Came back and he died. And the consequence, now, this is really important for anyone listening. The consequence is not just that he died. The consequence lives on today. I miss him. I think about him all the time. Several times throughout the year, I get emotional thinking about it because I was close to him. My parents were both drug addicts. I lived with him. Like, the consequence still exists. My son never got to meet him. He didn't get to be at my wedding. There's so many things that the consequence lives on. So don't just think
Mhm.
about it in terms of you. Think about other people and make it real. Make it painful. Like, the consequence needs to be real. Accountability partner is another big piece. Have an accountability partner. And then you've got wealth, you've got growth, which is like personal growth, personal development type stuff, reading books, podcasts, going to events, things like that, hiring a coach. Um, you've got faith, you've got relationships. One of my relationships bricks in the past has been that I'm going to commit to a one night like getaway boys night with my son every night or every month, at least one night we're just going to go and we're going to do something, not in the house, not just practicing baseball. Like we're going to go do something fun together. Another one for me in that brick has been like with my wife. One night per quarter, we do a getaway. So we go out of town, even if it's just one night, just to get away with me, just me and her. And then lastly is legacy. And that's like the impact one. Like, what can you do? Whether that's giving money or donate your time, or maybe you're writing a book for some people, whatever it is, what is your legacy brick? And I have a like complete framework for people I can give them, for free if they want to check that out. But yeah, and then on top of that, you mentioned a coach, man. Yeah, I have a coach, and like I stay in communities where people can level me up. Community's everything. If you just hang around with local people that you've known your whole life, I'm not saying that's bad, but like there has to be reciprocal value given, and you have to get people that are going to elevate you. You can't just stay around the same people and expect to grow. You got to get around people that are going to make you think bigger. If you're making, 100 grand a year and you're a millionaire at 60, and you're around a bunch of people that make 60 grand a year and are worth 400,000, well, then you feel like you're killing it. But the reality is your capacity is so much higher if you would put yourself around
Yep.
people that are at $10 million net worth, $100 million net worth. You just got to get around those people to believe in yourself and believe it's possible. That's one way I look at like podcasts. And every time I run an event, a training, a conference, whatever, is like, I feel like I'm a person with a hammer and a chisel, and I'm just chipping away, helping you realize what's possible, just opening your brain to what's possible.
No, I love that. I love that. We're not done, but I always do this in the middle. Where can people find you or your mastermind or anything that you want to direct people toward?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy, man. I'm on Facebook. Really, I don't really use any of the other platforms. Like I have a profile, but I don't use them. So if you just look me up, Hunter Ballew, Ballew, on Facebook, you can send me a DM. I'm happy to. If you just tell me you saw me on Joe's podcast, and you want the Six Bricks framework, I can send that to you. If you're a business owner, I do have therevolt.com/booster, therevolt.com/booster. It's a free assessment that I've built, and it's a ton of questions I've accumulated over the years. It's about 24 questions. It takes like 3 minutes to go through, and it'll completely analyze where you're at in business if you're a business owner, and tell you where your weak points are and send you resources for free based on that.
No, I love that. And I know you'll send me that stuff and we'll put it in the show notes for sure. That way people
Uh,
can get it. I love how your brain thinks, and I'm glad Philip connected us. I'm going to ask you this. It's kind of an off the wall question, but I just like it. I think I might know who the answer would be, but if you could go back in time as far as you want, or go forward in time as far as you want, you get to be with anyone for 1 year, learn all the knowledge and wisdom, get to stay with them, eat with them, be with them for a whole year, then bring it back here. Who would you go connect with, and what would you learn?
yeah, that's really tough, man. Um, Business wise,
No rules. Anyone you can pick,
ah,
anyone you
so
want.
hard, dude. It's so hard. And part of that is like business wise, I'm thinking like Andrew Carnegie, I'm thinking John Rockefeller, some of those guys. Some of the principles don't necessarily apply anymore. Some of them do. Modern day, someone like an Elon, because he is always staying ahead of the trend. Like I feel like people like Buffett, Warren Buffett, he has great stuff, obviously, but also he's 90 years old. So he's
Yeah.
probably not completely up to date with stuff outside of his industry of investing. Just in terms of like a person, leadership wise, because that's where I live, and like what I want to be known for one day is legacy focused leadership, leading with legacy in mind, making decisions today that aren't about the result you'll get tomorrow, but the result that you get 100 years from now, the people that you impact 100 years from now. That's where I live, and while I love John Maxwell and Craig Rochelle and so many of those guys, probably like George Washington. Obviously Jesus, principle wise, a person, a human in the last few centuries. In America, George Washington's definitely up there because he was such a servant leader and
Yeah.
didn't ask for any of the attention that he was given. And I think that's why it's one of the reasons America is great, is because the first person that set the tone for this country didn't even want to be put in the spot. He didn't want to be president. And then the second term, he didn't want to run for president the second term, and they begged him, and he did it. And then the third term, and they begged him to run for a third term, and he's the one that set the standard, saying, "Nope, there needs to be term limits. I'm going to do the 2 terms
Yep.
and I'm going to be done. And so I've respected that so much, man. And there's like story after story. And I get weird about like a leadership stuff. And like, at times, depending on the movie, like I can get emotional about it. But like one of my favorite stories is George Washington in one of the battles against the Brits. Um, all of our guys were retreating. We were just being overtaken and they're retreating. And I can't remember, I'd have to look back the specific battle. But Washington intuitively knew like if we don't win this battle, we probably don't win the war. This is George Washington, like the guy leading the charge.
Yep. Yep.
And so he sees all of our men retreating. And George Washington, of all the generals and all the leaders and all the officers, all the people there on horseback in the cavalry, he says, nah, man, we can't have this happen. And he takes off in the middle of the smoke, in the middle of the field with all of his guys running towards him. And he says, let's go. We've got to go. And what does everybody do? They turn around
Yep.
and they follow Washington. And we end up winning that war, man. Like I can feel it now. It gives me goosebumps. And like, yeah, just like the great leaders, man. It's not about them, dude. It's not about them. And there's stories, there's secondhand accounts from other officers that talk about Washington and his bravery in that moment. And one of the lieutenants rode after him and literally grabbed him and said, "You've got to come back. Like they're going to kill you. Obviously, like they're going to chop the head off if they get the opportunity." And actually saved Washington. And Washington writes about it in his journal. He was known to journal daily. And he writes about it. And that's one of the stories where he talks about God's, the providence that God had given him, the protection over his life of so many times I should have died, but it was obvious that God had a calling on my life. And I don't care who you are listening today, God has a calling on your life. Whether you believe that or you don't, whether you believe in God or you don't, like you're here for a reason. I can believe that for you. Joe can believe that for you, but ultimately you got to believe that. And I don't just say that to like feel good. We're on a podcast. I know that I don't even know you, whoever you are listening. We're never going to see each other face to face probably, but I'm just telling you, like if it's just to change one person, an example of that is we have a nonprofit called the Revolt Foundation. And our goal, we run these events called Life 101. Our goal is just to pour back into the kids. And a lot of times it's like underprivileged kids. And we've had events where only a handful of kids show up. And to a degree, you're like embarrassed. You're like, oh my gosh, we only got a couple kids here, all this. Like we have more adults here to help than we have kids.
Yeah.
But what matters, man, is that you help the one kid. That one kid, and this is real life example, that one kid that stays behind and is emotional and telling you that his dad's in jail and his mom's a drug addict and that his grandma brought him and that he connected with the guy that was a drug addict, a former drug addict, and got up there and changed his life because he's a sales rep now and he makes $100,000 a year. And now he believes, that kid believes, and there's no telling what that kid's going to do because he came to that event because 7 adults decided to show up for 5 kids. That's all that matters, is that we change the one. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm just not naturally a leader and I don't run these events and I don't do it, just change the one and let it grow from there. And when you change the one, let that feeling take over and multiply from there.
I love that. I'm going to ask you one last question because I've heard it through the whole thread. And I love that. But I want to recap that. Changing one life is the most impactful thing you can do because that one life, you never know the ripple effects you're going to have. So I agree with you 100% there. But what does legacy mean to you, Hunter?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So for me, it's very simple. I wrote I got my book here, a book about it. So September 17th, 2015, good friend of mine, my former partner at the fire department, Jordan Howard, was on his way into work. I was 24 at the time. He was 30 years old at the time. He had a brand new baby girl, 4 months old, beautiful wife. He was on his way into work on his motorcycle. Cops are chasing a guy going north. He's coming south. The guy running from the cops crosses over 4 lanes, hits my buddy head on, kills him instantly. I was in Louisville, Kentucky for a Clemson football game. Go Clemson. And it changed my life, man. I mean, I had lost my grandpa that I was really close to not long before that. I had lost an uncle. I had lost people close to me, but it was different, radically different. You know, when you lose someone that's 70 years old, it's almost like you expect it. When you
Yep.
lose someone that's your friend and someone that believes in you and that's 30 years old, it shook me to my core, man. And in that moment, immediately, I started saying, make it count. I'm going to make every single day count, and I'm going to give it everything I got. And so that became about legacy. I'm going to carry on Jordan's legacy, even if he doesn't get to. I'm going to carry that legacy
Mhm.
on. And for me, man, it means that legacy is all about the impact you make after you're gone. It's not the money you leave your kids. It's not the assets you leave your kids. It's not about your name being on the football stadium in your hometown or a statue. It's not about your name being on the sign as you come into your local hometown, home of Hunter Ballew, although I do want that.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. I got you.
but that's not legacy, man. Legacy is, it doesn't matter if they know my name. It doesn't matter if they ever met me. It just matters that I'm continuing to impact people after I'm gone. That's why books are so awesome, man. Like, you can continue to impact people after your life is done. Like the tagline here is ensuring when life expires, your legacy lives on, because your life is gonna expire. You go to
Yep.
any graveyard in the world, and you're gonna see that little date at the end, and the dash, you got your born date and your death date. That dash represents all that you accomplished in between. And so I think it's just important, man, to really focus on what can you accomplish while you're here. Don't make it about yourself. Make it about others. Impact over income. That's so
Mhm.
important to me, and it's something I believe in for sure. And that's why I wrote the book. And if you think back to the dates I told you at the beginning of the show, I told you I left the fire department December 22nd of 2015, which
Yep.
was just a couple months after Jordan passed. And I said, you know what, man, I've been wanting to chase this dream of all the guys at the fire department. Most of those guys didn't support me in my entrepreneurial dream. You know, they wanted me to focus on the fire department. He was one of the guys that did. And so he passed, and I was like, I got to do this thing, man. I'm not promised tomorrow. I want to make it count.
I love that. Hunter, thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for impacting people. Because what I've heard the thread throughout your life is, yeah, I built businesses, I made a lot of money, did that, but I'm more interested in changing people's lives and making an impact for the good. So I appreciate that. For all you listening, share this episode. You know someone that needs to hear this. And until next time, don't just read on it, act, do, and be.